This is just a real general overview of how SecZetta and SailPoint kind of interact and the different pieces that we kind of fulfill of the puzzle there. So, we've talked a lot about delegated and collaborative processes within SecZetta because that's what's required, right? For non-employees, we've got to allow those vendor managers and the business line sponsor and potentially all of these other teams access into to help make sure that we have all the accurate information for those non-employees. So what this diagram here is really talking about is we provide that in two ways, right? We can provide this external portal for an agency or a third-party vendor to get access in and do things like onboard their own people, or even allow these guys to onboard themselves, so a self-registration capability as well. And so there's this external portal where they are able to go in and do a handful of things. Obviously, we don't want to allow them to do it all. And typically the way that works is those folks can go in and make requests and onboard people and trigger that process, provide all the information. And then we have a separate portal for the hiring manager or the sponsor or the identity team or the procurement team to go in and fulfill, approve, provide additional details, that anything that's relevant to those, to those records, so that we have all that data gathered in one place. Again, that single kind of source of truth or system of record for those non-employees. And then we're able to really drive all of those processes and workflows from within SecZetta. And as we've already really talked about a little bit, right, we then have that repository of information, so SailPoint, and all the IGA processes and the access automation, all the governance, everything that they're doing, SailPoint can pull that non-employee information in to drive those processes in the right way and be very well informed about the non-employees. And that means taking all of that information, sending, provisioning and target applications, understanding exactly what access they need, potentially communicating with ServiceNow to open service desk tickets so that we can handle some of the potentially more manual processes of getting equipment ready or having badges created, right? There are all sorts of ways that SailPoint can then interact with those kind of target applications. And, I think I'll let Ben now go into a little bit here on this slide about, what we're going to see in the demo too.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So before I jump into the demo, I want to actually use this slide to kind of give a bit of a frame for it. During the demo, you're going to see two different perspectives, actually. We're going to be using the perspective of Agile, who needs to manage these new non-employees, and the vendor, who we're calling Acme Consulting, where these non-employees are coming from. So Jen did a great job of describing how we have two separate portals to log in from, one for the non-employees to manage, and then one for us internally as Agile. And that's exactly where the demo is going to start. So I'm going to start on the left side here where the logins are. And I'm going to log in as Acme Consulting and request a new worker to be onboarded. And then I'm going to log in again as Agile to actually approve that. And then after that, I'll show how that all flows into IdentityNow. So let me drag this over here to show you guys. This is our portal for logging in as Acme Consulting. And I'm going to log in as our delegated administrator. So here you can see the perspective of a delegated administrator from our Acme Consulting profile. And they've got a button here to request a new worker, and that's exactly what we're going to do. You can see all of the different profiles that are already currently in the system. So we're going to go ahead and request a new non-employee worker to be onboarded to Agile. And I'm going to go ahead and start filling out some information here. And you can see here, there's a lot of different things that can be added to this form. These forms are completely customizable. One thing that's really cool we can do here is what we've done here for the background check is that if they have a completed background check or background check in process, we can actually ask for extra files to be uploaded to confirm that this background check actually happened. But for this demo, I'm just going to say one was not requested. And all of these attributes can also be used later to play into the risk score that is assigned to a user. I'm going to make myself the sponsor here, so then when I log in from Agile's perspective, I'll be able to approve it myself. And we're going to have them start today and go for a week. So here I've submitted the request. We can see the request has been submitted and it's in progress. So now I'm going to hop over to our other portal to log in from Agile's perspective.
Yeah, and quickly putting some context, if your organization, all that work that Ben just did, it's very typical for people to be passing that organization to your folks in order to accomplish that work, right? Which is time consuming, inaccurate, passing personal information, a whole bunch of other things. So pushing that out to the right person to do the right information and to delegate it to the right place is just a critical move forward in terms of these types of processes.
Thank you, Zach. So now that I'm logged in here from Agile's perspective, we can see that I actually have a new request that needs my action here. So I'm going to go here and click this pending my action button. And it looks like that Jen requested a new worker from Acme Consulting. So I'm able to review all of the information that was laid out on the form and either accept or reject this new worker. And we actually have it configured so there are some specific details that only me as an internal manager can actually add. So I'm going to go ahead and add these details. We're going to say that they're a remote worker. And then I'm going to go ahead and approve this request.
And I'll add just a little here as well. You know, that was a fairly simple onboarding process, right? And kind of a typical thing that we might see for contractors, but keep in mind that there are a lot of additional steps that can be supported in here. In many cases, things like credential checks, if you're bringing on a physician, for example, or you know, additional teams that might need to approve specific details about these folks that are coming in, even policy checks. This is where we can build in identity proofing, for example. So even when those processes for onboarding become more complex, those can still be supported specifically within SecZetta and can differ depending on which type of non-employee we're really dealing with.
That's a great point, Jen. Thank you. And now that we've actually got him onboarded, we can also see him here on the dashboard and look at his profile and all his information that we've got stored. And me as an internal manager, I actually have an option to terminate him right here, which we will come back to later. But for now, we're going to switch over to IdentityNow and see how all of this information has flowed there. So I'm on our source for SecZetta, which is our non-employee authoritative source. So this is our source of truth for non-employees in IdentityNow, but we may have other sources, say from Oracle or anything else for our internal employees that are also being managed in the same system. But specifically, we're looking at the non-employees here and how they have a separate source of truth. So we can find the guy that we just onboarded here, Joshua Mills. And it looks like his information has already been transferred over to IdentityNow here. And it's showing him as an active account. And you can see here that at the same time as we flowed his information over to IdentityNow, he was also provisioned an Azure O365 account by IdentityNow as part of the onboarding process. So this was just automatically done. And that now that he is in IdentityNow, there are a bunch of things he can do. There's a request center. He can request access to different applications that he may need, or someone else can request access on his behalf. You can run certification campaigns can be run on his access to assure that the access he currently has is access that he should have. And all of these super important things for managing non-employees and the access that they have. So now that we've seen how his information has come to IdentityNow and how it's automatically provisioned him a new account, we can come back to SecZetta and see what happens when it's time to actually terminate him. So let's go back to his profile. And it was Joshua Mills we onboarded here, and I'm going to go ahead and just terminate him. And of course, that can be configured to be more of an approval process or anything else you need as well. but for this demo, it's just going to be a quick termination. And now we're going to go back to IdentityNow. Whoops. And we're going to head back to that SecZetta source of truth for non-employees and see how his account has changed. But first, of course, I have to actually tell it to pull the new information. And normally these are something that will happen on a scheduled basis. But of course, for the sake of a demo, I have to force the identity pull here. So once that completes in a couple seconds here, we should be able to see his information change. And you can see here now that we're looking at his profile, his life cycle state has gone to inactive. And if we go to his accounts, we can see that not only was his IdentityNow account disabled, but his Azure O365 account was also automatically disabled along with his profile. So with this, you can really see how together IdentityNow and SecZetta can really help with these gaps in managing non-employees and all of the access that they have.